Okay, are we live? I'm gonna go ahead and assume that we are live right now. I mean, audio seems to be looking good for the most part. And yeah, if you want me to say something, guys, right now, about this episode, man, I mean, I'm at a loss for words. I am legit at a loss for words. Let me go ahead and say this first. I don't think I'm ever gonna go through watching an episode of Raw again. I really am not. Because let me start off by saying this first. When I saw the episode of Raw, for whatever reason, the background music was like super, super faint. And I was like, okay, I'm getting the sense that there's supposed to be a big moment here. I get that. But I'm not feeling it. And then when the subs finally came out and I saw the episode, all of a sudden it was there. And I was like, you know what? From this point forward, I am no longer going to be reacting to this. Like, I'll watch the subs, but, or not the subs, I'm going to watch the raw version still, just to see how they adapted the material. But if I'm going to rely on a first impressions, it's not going to be raw from the raw. It's going to be from, like, the actual subs themselves, because it's like a 9-day comparison. Um, and that being said, how is this actually going to go for this stream in particular, since it's only just one episode? There's a lot to talk about. The format, for the most part, still relatively going to be the same as it was last week, where, I talked about the last episode. Obviously, we're not talking about the opening and the ending, because the opening and the ending of Final Season Part 2 have been pretty stellar. I mean, like I said, the rumbling opening, I didn't feel too much the first time around, but it's grown on me. Like, it's grown on me a lot. Having said that, though, boy, where do I start with this? That's the big thing. So, relatively, like I said, the format's going to be the same as last week, where I give my thoughts on the episode, go into an anime rating, how my stance is just from an anime adaptation, and then when the time comes, I will delve into my thoughts as a manga reader, which, whoo, it's more of a reflection period on me at this point than anything else, all things considered. But let me preference by saying this first. The episode, um, I like how you kind of start off the episode and you kind of get like a recap ish segment. I know that's not everybody's cup of tea, especially for animes. I mean, that's been a trend for a while. But I liked where you got the recap with Frida and Grisha. Like, that was raw as hell. Oh my god. Like, I still remember reading it was one thing, but actually seeing it and seeing like the brutality of it was something else. I honestly gotta say. It was really, really something else. All things considered. And not just that, but I like how you had the correlation. Like, you get that, and then you get the very, very last segment with Zeke, which, oh my god, I still can't get over the ending of the last episode. When Zeke's there and you got Grisha saying, "Stop, Eren," and he just looks all shocked and everything. And then Eren's like, "What? You thought you were in control? No, 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 no. That's not how this is gonna work. I'm the one in control." And you get a little bit of a follow up from that, where you get that conversation, and it's like, okay, you've shown Dad something that's yet to happen, and everything's gonna go Aaron's way. And I'm gonna save that when it comes to the manga section of it. I'm gonna save that when we cut to this part of the stream. But it's kind of crucial for the most part for Aaron. It really is. And even so, when you have Zeke there telling Ymir, hey, I want you specifically, to take away the Eldian's ability to reproduce. Now, who else in parody? Okay, I'm pretty sure there's a lot of people who are pregnant in the AOT world, but as far as parody is concerned, who's the one character that's pregnant? Who's the one character that's in danger from all of this? I mean, it's Astoria. It's not rocket science, guys. It really isn't. And you see the struggle. You see, um, I don't want to say the commitment, but the raw uh versatility of Eren, of what he's willing to do. Breaking the chains, running up to Ymir, which I know the anime did this thing where they kind of did a mirror effect because they showed him running from the left side, whereas in the manga, and I've got my volume right over here too. By the way, my webcam's still kind of acting dumb, so we're going to be talking like this without that. But essentially, in the manga version, you see him running from the right side. Whereas, again, you get the mirror effect here in the anime, where he's running from the left side. There's nothing really to complain about. I kind of prefer the manga version, honestly. But then again, what manga version isn't superior to the anime? And that's actually where those 5 minutes go before you get the opening of the final season part two. And funny enough, that beginning portion of the episode is actually the last 5 pages, I want to say, of 121. I want to say it's the last 5 pages. So let's see. You got the stop Eren line. You got Eren looking over at the 1, 2, 3, 4. So like 5 to 6 pages. Like the last 5 to 6 pages ultimately is the last portion, like the last stretch of chapter 121. And after that, you get chapter 122 with Ymir's backstory. And I like how it really emphasized and focused on the Frida and historic conversation, which adds so much more clarity now. It really, really does. Where essentially what you get is the transition over into the Ymir backstory. Which, at first, when you go back to season 3 and you have that conversation, you're thinking, okay, it's just a cute little moment between Frida and Historia, just as like sisters, the older sister and the younger sister. Only to now come back into play and actually dive into that flashback, which, holy shit. That was something. I want to say that was honestly something. Seeing the flashback of Ymir, like it was already one thing reading it in the manga, but to actually see what Ymir had to go through and the struggles she had to face, the condition that Eldia was in at the time, and how it kind of showed this opposite effect, if you will, where back in the day, Eldia was actually the one that was above Marley, and Marley was kind of the underdog. And here, you don't get that. And whereas in present day, it's the opposite effect. Marley's the one who's like the upper dog, if you will, and you got Parody, who's like looked at as like filth or like not scum. I don't want to say scum, but like rats. Like that's the condition is on like poor living in the slums. There we go. That's the word I want to use here. Living in the slums for sure. And it's actually interesting how you get the backstory of Ymir because all this starts out with her freeing the pigs. She frees the pigs, and as her punishment, well, I wouldn't really call it as a punishment, but essentially what King Fritz, or as what I like to call him, as far as King Shit is concerned, he asks who did it. They all point at Ymir, which it's messed up as hell. This poor little girl over here. All she wanted to do was free the pigs. And y'all are just like, it was her. She did it. She freed the pigs. I'm like, it just goes to show you how messed up the world of Attack on Titan truly is. It really, really does. And you just can't help but feel bad for her with everything that happened. And when they all point to Ymir, you got King Fritz going like, the one who let the pigs go was you. And everyone's there. They're looking at her, and the king's like, very well. You're free. Like, she's free to go. And one of the best things about this episode that I want to say, as far as this flashback is concerned, you barely get any dialogue in the flashback at all. Like, and it was like that in the manga too. There was so much that you felt about Ymir, and without any line of dialogue. That's impressive. That's honestly really impressive, and it's not something a lot of series do. Like, I remember going back to Naruto. I want to say it was one of the chapters, and I'm misremembering it, but um there's a chapter there. One of the characters go through something, and there's like very, very little dialogue. Um but it was still pretty powerful to see nonetheless. And there was another moment like this with Tokyo Ghoul. Barely any dialogue. I'm not gonna spoil what that moment is in Tokyo Ghoul for the manga. Anime is one thing, but the anime for Tokyo Ghoul is a disaster in and of itself. But the manga, not to go off track here, it was just as powerful as this. I'll say it was just as powerful of a moment as it was here. But you see what happens. You see her running for her life, adding the sound effects of her running away and her trying to fend for her life, if you will. Now, this is something that I thought was interesting because she's pinned down by the arrow. She's still running away. She finds the tree. Now, in the manga, this is kind of where it's kind of cool because when it came to the manga version, it's like she walks in and she slips. That's all you get in the manga. She literally walks into the tree and just like it's like an immediate entrance. It's like, oh no, she's there, and then boom. Next thing you know, she's into the water. The anime though, you actually spend a little bit more time. Like she's actually not just walking inside the tree, but she's walking. It's like another layer, if you will. And as she's walking in, she actually slips into the lake, which has I guess you could say a parasite of sorts. It's a parasite that attaches itself to Ymir and ultimately is kind of the foundation of how she becomes a Titan. How the whole Titan cycle thing actually works out. And through her becoming a Titan and what she was able to accomplish, King Shits is like, for everything you've done, I'm gonna give you my seed as a reward. And again, you look at the reaction Ymir has, and she is like she just accepts it, and she knows she doesn't have a choice, and it sucks. It really, really sucks. And you see like everything that goes on from there. Her trying to take out the soldiers, and then gaining more and more um people to rally behind King Fritz. I'm sorry, King Shits. Let me be more frank here. King Shits. You see her crushing like all the soldiers of Marley when you see her giving birth to her children. And what I find interesting about this, and this is where I'm gonna save a more deeper dive discussion with the manga folks, but essentially she's looking at her kids, and normally I don't know how it is for a lot of you guys, but I know normally when a woman gives birth to her children, like she's normally smiling and she's happy. Ymir didn't have that reaction. She's looking at her children and going like y'all are offsprings of this guy, this person that did all this shit to me. Like, she's not pleased by the fact that she's having these kids. And it's like, whoa. I mean, to be fair, I'm pretty sure if a lot of y'all were in that situation, she'd be like, I can't believe it. Like, this baby, these children are offsprings of the guy who did all this shit to me. It's messed up. It really is pretty messed up, all things considered. And you see little flashes of what goes on with Ymir. Still, gathering more soldiers around for the king. You're seeing how everything's forming together. And then someone's there. Someone from Marley is there to ultimately take out the king, and Ymir comes in, takes the bullet, and the king's like, what the hell happened? Like, what just happened? Get up. You're a slave. And he doesn't even acknowledge her as a person. You're like, you're my slave. I know this isn't enough to take you down. And you see that reaction from Ymir, where she's like, I can finally go. I can finally die. I can finally avoid all this pain and suffering that I'm going through. Like, it's done. And what does the king do next? The king tells his children, eat her, devour her. We gotta keep the bloodline going. And ultimately, instead of letting Ymir rest in peace, her children, Maria, I forget who. Okay, I think Maria's the older child. Sheena and Rose. I forget who's the older one out of the other two, but I know Maria's the oldest. So you got Maria, Rose, and Sheena. Those are the three children, and they eat their mother, which I'm a little disappointed that it's not as bone chilling, and by bone, no pun intended, but it was gruesome to see that part in the manga, and I get why they toned it down in the anime, but it was still kind of just like, man, like the visceral of that scene alone, like that stuck to me. Reading that in the manga was like, how are they gonna adapt that? Because you got to get around a lot of things, and I think with how they were able to do it, they did a pretty decent job. I'll say that they did a pretty decent job with how they animated that scene. Because for the longest time, I was looking at that and I kept thinking, how are y'all gonna tackle it? I really did wonder that. So it was cool seeing that they did it. And who knows? Maybe when it comes to the Blu-ray, because I know Blu-rays like to have a few changes here and there, they could probably fix that. They could probably show how visceral it really was in the manga. Because I kid you not, guys, like look up that scene in the manga, and you're gonna be like, "Whoa, that's a shit ton of fucked up, a shit ton." But no, you get that, and even then, he tells his children, "Eat her, get the powers." But even after you die, let your children eat you, and let your children's children eat you, so my legacy can continue on, so we can let this world know, and then to build the world that I want to see. And I love what happens after this, because, and it was so well done, both in the manga and in the anime, because you see him saying that speech, with my world, cut. And then you get Eren saying, hell no. That's not how this is going down. Like, if I remember correctly, the exact words were, so long as my world exists forever, and Eren just says, it ends now. Like, right as he's saying it, he just says, it ends now. I'll put an end to this world. Give me your strength. You're no slave. You're no god. You're just a person. You don't need to serve anyone. You can be the one to choose. Now, why does that sound so familiar? Why does that line sound so familiar? It's the exact same maybe not the exact same line per se, but it's very reminiscent of what Historia told Eren when she was freeing him. She doesn't want to be a god. She just wants to be someone who's there to help people. And I think it's really cool to get that callback here where Eren's doing the same thing with Ymir. And you see Zeke, Monkey Boy Zeke over here, running over trying to tell him, "No, you are the founder. You're supposed to obey the king. You should listen to the descendant of the royal blood." And Eren tells her, "Hey, you get to decide. You get to choose. Stay here for eternity or end it all. What are you doing, Ymir?" Or that's what Zeke's saying. But ultimately, Eren says, "Were you the one who led me here? You must have been waiting all this time. Waiting 2,000 years just for somebody." And oh my god. Like, if I didn't feel bad for Ymir before, like, the look she had on her face, like, because we didn't see her eyes at all. And it was like that in the manga, too. You didn't see her eyes at all. Up until when Eren tells her, waiting 2,000 years just for someone. And the tears this girl brought out. Like, again, no line of dialogue. Just raw emotion. Tears running down her face. It was heart wrenching. It really, really was. Both in terms of the anime and in the manga. Now, I want to preference something that I mentioned with the Raws. When I was watching it in the Raw version, again, the audio was like super, super faint. So when I was listening, when I was hearing that, I was like, the scene would be a lot more impactful with background music in the actual scene itself. But when I watched it with the subs, like it was still kind of like silent, but if you listen to it like hard enough, it kind of had like this ominous presence as Aaron's running, as he's talking. And I don't know how you guys felt, but it was impactful. I felt like it was a lot more impactful hearing that ambient uh ominous in the background of the episode. And just as that's happening, as she's crying, you see the parasite attach itself to Eren, and I love this little attention to detail that the anime did. Because Eren's there, and then he just looks back, transforms. And I want to say he transformed in a similar manner to the Warhammer Titan. I want to say that. Because it looked like it was coming from the ground up, not the other way around, which is, in my opinion, an interesting situation. It really, really is, all things considered. But the thing is, for anybody that's curious, the episode or the manga actually ended with the walls collapsing right in front of Gabby and right as Aaron's about to transform. Like, that's literally where it ends. And the episode, though, and this is kind of where I was like, whoa. Okay, that's it threw me off a little bit, but I remember hearing about it from like somebody that apparently we weren't going to get a specific portion of the next chapter, which was 123. They were just going to get to Eren saying waiting 2,000 years for someone. You see Ymir cry. After you see the transformation happen, like you actually literally get to see the transformation, the full transformation. It wasn't like Eren transforms and then to be continued, and then the next chapter would have ultimately opened up like with the founding titan actually there. Here you actually get to see it fully transform, which I thought was interesting. And essentially, and this isn't really a spoiler because it's like legitly the last third, I want to say. It's been a while since I've read 123, but it's like the very last third of 123. And I remember sitting there watching the episode, just seeing the way he transformed, seeing the way the walls came down, and like the red aura in the atmosphere Because I always kind of imagine, like, all right, is it going to look more orange or is it going to look more red in the when it came to the anime portion? Because reading that in the manga was one thing, but like actually getting that sense in the anime and just seeing that portion, I was like, oh, that's cool. So you see that happening, like like the walls literally came tumbling down. The wall titans are there, and they are about to do some shit. Man, well, what a time this was. Honestly, what a time it actually was. Just seeing all this. But honestly speaking, I felt as if it was more effective. I really did. Because Armin's there. He's like, oh, yeah, look, Eren's on our side. Only to come to, well, not to find out, but only to come to terms with the fact of what Eren actually wants to do. And this is a key thing that I'm going to get into more when I talk about the manga section here. Because, like, my thoughts on this from a manga reader's perspective and where it all leads. But Eren's objective, and I want y'all to keep in mind with this for the remainder of the season. I really want you guys to keep in mind. Eren's goal is to protect his home, protect his people from the outside world. Okay? And that makes sense considering what they did to Parody. Of course he would want to protect it. Of course he would want to do that. That's not a hard concept to get around. And to do that, he unleashed the Wall Titans and he wants to exterminate all life outside the walls, outside the island. And I know some people are going to look at that and say, that's messed up. It's not right. There's no justification behind it. Honestly speaking, though, I get the reasoning. I really do. Considering the 3 seasons we've seen Eren and where he's led to on this journey, with what because here's the thing, people want to say, oh, this was all going back to the king. Technically speaking, yes, but the king confined themselves in the walls. Okay, keep that in mind. He confined his people in the walls from the outside world. And Eren said, no, 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 no. Here's the thing, they came and attacked us. Key thing here, they sent the Colossal Titan, the Female Titan, and the Armor Titan. Colossal Titan, Female Titan, Armor Titan. Yeah. They sent those 3 Titans specifically. Oh, hey, let's get the Founder back. But let's also cause all this shit to scar people. Now, you sit here and tell me, is Eren not justified in doing that? Because I totally get where he's coming from. I totally do. It's not right. I'm not going to say it's morally speaking, yeah, it's not the right thing to do, but to get his background, to get where he's coming from, I understand 100%. And I don't blame him. I really, really don't. And it's actually pretty interesting because when he's delivering that speech, we get everyone who's an Eldian. Like we see Reiner, we see Armin and Mikasa, Jean, Connie's there too. Shadis is there, which is interesting because I don't think we saw him in the manga version. I don't think. I don't know if we saw Flock either. There's a big difference though with Astoria because I know she was actually in the manga chapter. They didn't show her face in the manga. She was standing, and you saw like from the back where she's like holding on to her tummy, and she's standing. Here in the anime, she's actually sitting in the chair, and she's looking up at the tree, and and you can just tell the look on Historia's face of what's about to happen. So she knows a lot more. And I mean, I'm just gonna say right now, that's only a face a loved one would be worried about. A loved one like Astoria would be the face that she had. It was, it was something. And I know some people want to say, oh, that's it. Like, after that, we get Eren and it's a still shot. I was like that too. Okay? Let me just say this right now. it was one thing for me to actually look at that scene. And initially, when I saw that it was a still from, I was like, "That's it." Like we don't actually get to see Eren like actually talk. And I know some people want to say, "Well, he was being telepathic." I know that. I mean, I'm not. That's not hard to grasp. What I'm referring to is they could have shown him like talking and whatnot. And I did see a little animation of why it wouldn't work. And that's not what I'm referring to. What I would have done in that scene is you see like the back shot of Eren making that speech, and then you do like an extremely side close up shot of his mouth as he's talking. Um, it's like the wall tightens. Let me actually pull up the exact manga panel because I know it's here somewhere. If I'm looking at this more correctly, the wall titan shall trample all earth outside this island underfoot. And where the close up shot I would have put again, side close up shot from his mouth. Until all life existing there. And then, you do a wide shot of that still shot has been exterminated from this world. That's what I would have done, personally. It's not bad though. Like I still think it works. I just think it could have been done a little bit differently. And again, that's more of a nitpick than anything. Um, and interestingly enough, thinking back on the whole Astoria panel, because if you notice, everyone else is just frozen in that scene. Historia is the only one I noticed where you actually saw her eyes like actually showcase what's going on. Everyone else was like, "Oh, what?" But you actually saw like a movement of motion in Historia's eyes, which I thought was a really nice touch. It really, really was. And that's kind of ultimately where the episode ended. And if y'all want to hear my thoughts, um, just coming off as an anime adaptation, I'm gonna say this episode is nearly perfect. Like at first, because again, if I was just basing this off the raw version, I would have said it's around like a good plus because of like again all the faint audio background noise that wasn't necessarily present in the scenes that should have been impactful. But watching it in the subs was a different case, and that kind of elevated where I initially thought was a good plus episode to ultimately, and make no mistake when I say this, an amazing plus episode. Which, if y'all are curious what that rating scale is numerically, that'd be like a 9.5 out of 10. Again, zero point 0.5 because of little nitpicks, but that's it. And a 10 out of 10 would have equated to a pure perfection rating for me personally. But it was still good. It was still like honestly really, really good to see. And it leaves a foundation of yo, where do we go from here? Like, how exactly do you top this episode? It honestly is crazy. It really, really is. Now, I'm gonna say this right now. From this point forward, I'm gonna be delving into manga spoilers. So if any of y'all are still here, like all the anime onlys, listen to my advice. I really, really want y'all to listen to my advice. Go ahead and leave because I don't want to ruin this experience for you guys. I really, really don't. I really don't. I want y'all to formulate your own opinion from this point forward. And I'm gonna keep saying that every week because I will still tackle the other episodes. Um, it's just gonna be done in this format where the first half of the discussion will be dedicated to anime only, and then we delve into manga spoilers. So if any anime onlys are still here, again, best y'all leave. Best y'all leave because now with the reflection period from the guy who's read the manga. So, like I said, do yourselves a favor and leave because you know Where do I start? Where do I start now? Just looking at this episode, knowing what's to come. And to this day, I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. I really, really am. Because watching this episode reminded me of what made Attack on Titan so good, so special. Seeing the journey of where Eren went, seeing Ymir, and seeing all the puzzle pieces come together. And with what we got, I don't get how you reach that conclusion. I really, really don't. And I know if we're going off the episode list that got leaked apparently, which I've got up right over here, by the way. The episode listing itself, which is right over here. So we've only covered the first 5 episodes. I think it's first 5. Yeah, first 5 episodes of the final season, part 2. Judgment, Sneak Attack, Two Brothers, Memories of the Future, and From You 2,000 Years Ago. And that does kind of make me wonder because we know the titles of the next 3 episodes, which is Thaw, Sunset, and Pride. Relatively chapters 124 for the next episode, 125 for episode, is it 8? No, it's not 8. Yeah, for episode 7 it's Sunset, and then episode 8 is going to be titled Pride. And based off the episode the episode list that apparently got leaked out, it's looking accurate. It's looking pretty accurate to what we've got over here. And I don't want to say 100% that it's confirmed that yes, this is what we're getting for the rest of the season. I want to wait and see. I really just want to wait and see what episodes 84 and 85 are going to be titled. Because episodes 84 is going to be titled Night of the End, which is chapter 327. And then Traitor, which is episode 85, that'd be adapting chapters 128 to 129. And that would only leave the Dawn of Humanity chapter, which is chapter 130, and the Rumbling, which would be the last episode of part 2. And going back to what I said last week, if we're really to rely on the list here, that wouldn't be a lot to adapt then if they were to do a part 3. It really wouldn't. Because after 131, you've only got a total of 8 chapters, I think. Yeah, 8 chapters in total. So, what I think's going to happen, because we know there's a red stage coming, and through that red stage, I feel like they're going to announce an Attack on Titan movie just based on the last 8 chapters. I feel like that's what they're going to do. Now, again, that's assuming this is looking accurate, this list we got over here of the rest of the season. And I've stated this last week too, that if the final season part 2 ends at the Rumbling chapter or the Dawn of Humanity chapter, if it ends at either of those 2 spots, I'll pick up the final season on Blu-ray. I've made that a stance. And that's something I mentioned with My Hero too. Like if My Hero chapter 31 ends at chapter 306, which it did, I'll catch up to where the current volumes are at. So that's a declaration I made, and that's a declaration I'm going to stand by, all things considered. But getting more onto my point about this from the manga, it is honestly sad. It honestly is just super, super sad looking at this whole thing because I'm sitting here seeing where Eren's gone through, seeing where all these characters are at, and I'm still wondering, how is this a lie? Legitly, like all things considered, how is everything that we've seen throughout the story, everything about Eren's character, striving for freedom, you honestly want me to sit here and believe the Eren that we've seen from the very beginning of the story, seeing where he's gone through, all the trials and tribulations, everything throughout the story, up until this point, and you guys just want to say that it was all for nothing? That he was just lying the entire time to the reader, to the audience? That no, protecting Parody was never his goal. It was just to protect his friends, leaving Parody up to chance the fate of his people, his home. Really, you really want me to sit here and believe that? Because I still don't believe that to this day. I really, really don't. That's like me taking or not me. Let's bring Naruto into account. That's like taking Naruto and his entire foundation of wanting to be Hokage and never giving up. And ultimately, in the end, just being like, yeah, none of that stuff really mattered. I didn't care about being Hokage. I just wanted to just seek attention. That's it. It's like no, that would not only just be insulting to your readers, but just to the audience as a whole, to the people you got invested to. That's what it would feel like. If you want another example, um, Code Geass, Lelouch. What was his entire objective? Lelouch wanted to, take out all of his enemies and build a future for Nanami, for his little sister. And ultimately, yeah, Lelouch kind of maneuvered around that with Suzaku, but the difference here versus the ending of Attack on Titan is that was Lelouch's plan from the start. And him and Suzaku, we've seen this. He conversed with Suzaku. This is what I want to do. After we take out my enemies, I'm going to make myself the bad guy. And I want you to be the one to take me out. To bring the world into unity. And the little pieces, the little shards we've seen throughout Code Geass, that's actually present in that final episode. And look, Attack on Titan didn't have that. It really, really didn't. And again, totally different scenario here too. And I remember stating this a long time ago. Letting the Alliance win. If Eren doesn't try, if he's just sitting there like, no, no, just end my life. One, that goes against his entire character of not letting anyone submit his will, according to Levi. Yeah, he's a monster. He's a force not to be reckoned with. And no one is going to make him submit to what he wants to do. That was always something vital to Eren as a character. It really was. And then in the ending, to make it all seem like that wasn't the case. No. So, let me just say this. I will still watch the episodes from this point forward because I just kind of want to see how they adapt the rest of the stuff. I really, really do. And to see if that episode listing is actually accurate. Because that's the thing that got me more peaked on the rest of part 2. Because initially I thought, okay, I'll watch up to episode 5 and then just share my thoughts on those 5 episodes. Pretty much when Eren makes this declaration of let's eliminate everyone outside of parody. But that episode list made me go like, on the off chance it's actually true, I kind of want to see how the rest of it goes. And I'll say this, what I'm not looking forward to, besides the lack of Eren that we're going to get in the next few episodes, I'm not really looking forward to the Connie stuff. And y'all know what happens with Connie. Oh my god, it was cringe in the manga seeing that. It's gonna be cringe watching the anime. Really, really is. But there's some good stuff to look forward to and some of the alliance stuff that we're gonna get. Like the campfire scene, I did think was actually kind of nice. That is something I am curious to seeing how they're gonna tackle. The Battle of the Port, while not perfect, I thought was generally okay reading on the manga. So I'm gonna be it's gonna be nice to see how Map actually adapts that into episode. Again, if we're going by this episode listing here, that would be episode 10. So there's that. And when I mean Andy's gonna break out next episode. I mean that's again manga spoilers here. So if y'all are still here in the anime, I'd consider leaving. Just saying right now. I'd consider skedaddling out of here because you know. But if y'all don't care about spoilers, then hey, have at it. Um, but like I said, Annie breaking out's one thing I'm looking forward to. The campfire scene and the Battle of the Port. Outside of that, there's not really a whole lot that I'm curious of seeing with the Alliance. There really isn't. But I'm noticing y'all guys are commenting, so I'm gonna go ahead and see what y'all are saying. So Umbra, let's see here. Yeah, it'll probably be fixed in the Blu-ray since it won't be confined to television anymore. Yeah, I think that's what's gonna happen too with the scene where Ymir's being eaten. I think they're gonna really showcase that in the Blu-ray. And I know that's happened before too with other animes. Also, lightning strikes throughout the ground too, outside the wall. Though maybe that's just a shockwave from Ymir activating the wall titans and paths. Yeah, and I know that's a theory that's been brought up too. That perhaps because it hit the ground outside the walls, maybe Eren's like actually hiding in there. That's possible. I know the whole AoE theory is still a really big deal. And it's something a lot of people are curious about if we're actually going to get to see it. If y'all want to know my stance on AoE and whether or not we're going to get a different ending from what we got in the manga, I'll say this. My percentage range hasn't really changed. Um, I'm still thinking there's a 45% chance that it will happen and a 55% chance it won't happen. That's my guess. And who knows? Because if we go back to the Uprising arc, we know ECM streamlined a few things because of the reception that the Uprising arc got in the manga. So because of how our opinion has been on the manga ending, maybe Isayama has taken that into account. He's like, this has to change. Maybe we will get that. Maybe. Because we know he's not blinded by how people are reacting to things. And that gives him like second thoughts or whatnot, especially when it comes to the anime. So there's a chance. How big of a chance that is, I have no idea. But we'll see. And like I said, when it comes to the lightning striking the ground, like outside the walls, I could see it. Really could. But it just depends really. What else did you say? Flock and Historia are new. Well, Historia had her yeah, that's what I mentioned before too. Um in chapter 123, and it's literally the same thing actually, because Historia is the last person we see before we shift to Eren's reaction in the final panel. So it's kind of like the same thing here, only now we're seeing her from the front and actually sitting on her chair. The flock one's new though. I know that. Actually, I'm curious. So we're gonna go back and look at chapter 123. At least when it comes to the declaration speech that Eren gives. I actually do want to see who we actually see. Again, I know Flock's new. I'm curious about Shadis because I don't recall seeing Shadis in the manga per se. Okay, so let's see who we got over here. We're looking at all this. Seeing the Titans. Okay. We're getting Eren, so there's Mikasa and Armin. There's Connie and Jean. There's Reiner, Peak, and Gabby. There's a story in the back. Yeah, so Flock and Shadis are new. Because again, it took me a second to be like, wait, hold up. I don't recall Shadis being in Path, so that was actually a nice touch. All things considered, it really was a nice touch. Also, it's interesting that Historia is the only person in motion. You can see her eyes glistening. Everyone else is frozen in time. Yeah, I took note of that too, and that stood out. I was like, hmm, okay, everyone else is frozen, but Historia is the only one where you see her eyes like actually in motion. That's and who knows? Maybe that could lead to AOE too. Maybe, but thought it was nice. Voom today, and then we get, and then Jack here commented too. Did you see that Warhammer theory is back? The one where Eren is using the Warhammer and he is still on the island? Maybe that theory will be right if we get an original ending. I hope so. I really. Guys, y'all have no idea how much I'm actually hoping that we get something like that. Because that was disappointing in the manga. Like you bring in the Warhammer Titan for Eren to have, and you only utilize it during the battle between him and Reiner and Porco, and only for him to get out of prison? Not just that, I'm also really annoyed at the fact that there's the scene, and I've got it here too. It's during the Return of Shinganshina arc, and when Reiner technically got his neck severed. I say technically, but there's a scene here with Reiner. I know it's. I've got it saved or something. Um, but y'all know what I'm talking about. It's the scene when Reiner transfers his subconsciousness to the other parts of his body. The fact that that wasn't utilized too, I was like, if you because being someone who's working on a novel, and y'all have known this for a while, but if you're gonna introduce concepts like that, you can't just say it's a one-time deal. If it's something that's crucial to the lore of your story, that has to come back into play. And the fact that that wasn't utilized, nor the Warhammer Titan, nah, that's still strange. But I mean, who knows? The Warhammer theory, I know that's been something a lot of people talked about, even with the manga too, when it was still ongoing. And maybe, and Jack, I do want to say that we could see it. We could. I'm hoping that we do, but again, I don't want to rely too much. I don't want to put too much hope into it because we all know when it came to the manga, it's like Isayama will pull through. We know he'll deliver. Even when things got rough in the final volume, it was like this Isayama we're talking about here. He manages to pull everything together. He does that, but he didn't. Let's hear it. And then Umbra's saying exactly everything between Lelouch and Suzaku was planned. Eren didn't talk to Flock and be like, and be like, yeah, I'm going to destroy the world, except not really. Psych. No, seriously. Like, chapter 130. When Aaron's talking to Flock, this man legit looked at Flock and said, I'm going to bring ruin to the world. Slaughter every last one of those animals. Civilization and all. That is how that conversation went. It wasn't, yeah, I'm going to destroy the world. And only to make it seem like, and only make it seem like that visibly, but there's really this only other objective I have, where, just want to protect my friends. That's what matters to me. I mean, look, I'm not saying Eren doesn't want to protect his friends. I'm not saying that at all. Because there's a difference between, you know, what your goals are and what your wishes are. And Eren's goal, based on chapter 123, at the very end of it, or at the very least the end of this episode, is to protect his people and his home from the outside world from getting destroyed. And to take this even further, chapter 134, literally But for the last 5 chapters, the guy said, "I'm not gonna let Parody's fate be determined on a gamble. Like, I'm not gonna do that one bit." That was 4, yeah, that was before the last 5 chapters. And he said this too. And he gave the Alliance a choice. If y'all want to stop me, because I'm not stopping. He said that himself. And then 139 just wanted to, I don't know, retcon everything. Still ridiculous as it is. But let's see here. And then Jack, Eren really didn't protect his friends. He just didn't kill him. He just left them with all the world's responsibilities, tragedies, and just death. Exactly. And it's just so funny. Looking back at the last chapter now, because I still remember the biggest thing. Oh, peace, negotiations. That's all we need to do. Even though that could cause parity, in the long run. And I loved how when those extra 8 pages came out, and we got parody actually getting destroyed, I was like, so Alliance fans, how does that make y'all feel? Like, all things considered, how does that make y'all feel? Because y'all said, no, no, we can't destroy the world. We just gotta talk. We gotta negotiate. Do what Naruto did. Talk no jutsu. That's what we have to do. Apparently, talk no jutsu didn't last. It really didn't. So there's that. Um, and again, that's so out of character too for Eren. It really is. Which, again, makes the whole story just feel so inconsistent then. Because you introduce all these traits, you bring Eren on this journey. And, when you get to the last chapter, it's like you kind of make it feel like it's all for nothing. And that's the sad part. You kind of make the last chapter ultimately makes it feel like it's all for nothing. It's really depressing, honestly. And then let's see here. Umber brought in the last comment too. 130 is the most important chapter with regards to the ending, and then that happened. I know. Which, funny enough, if y'all actually look at the volumes here, I'm looking at volume 30 again. Sometimes at the end of the volumes, they have the to be continued at the very end, like to be continued in volume 31. What's interesting is I looked back at volume 22, and it doesn't have it to be continued at the final page of the chapter. And volume 32 doesn't have it to be continued at the end of when Eren says to destroy, all those animals on this earth. It just ends with that panel. So it's kind of like, okay, so you've kind of got 2 stopping points then. If you really want to look at it, you could either make volume 22. I think volume 33 has this also. To where it doesn't have a to be concluded. Now, yeah, I know ultimately the following pages after it says, volume 33, volume so and so coming soon. They'll have that, but it's not like printed on the final page of the chapter, the last chapter of each of the volumes. So, that's something to keep in mind. And speaking of 130, which is, I would have actually almost forgot about this. If we are again to go by these leaks, the episode listing, I should say, basically, episode 10, or not 10, episode 11, Dawn of Humanity, is gonna cover basically the flashback of 123, and they're gonna combine it with chapter 130. And I don't know how I feel about that. I mean, all I'm seeing from that is it's gonna just cause. I mean, it's gonna just fuel the ship wars. It really is, and I'm just kinda like, do we really need that? Honestly, I would rather just chapter 130 be its own episode, much like how Again, if we're going by the episode listings here, I'd rather it be like episodes 81 through 83, just where it says where it's just adapting one chapter. And if you and I know some people are going to be like, well, where would you put chapter 123? I would, and then some people have said this too. I would side chapter 123 with the rumbling chapter because it's still kind of getting that same effect because you get Ramsey, and then you flash forward and you get Ramsey too. I think that would make the most sense rather than pairing it up with chapter 130. I think anyway, it would. I think it'd be more smoother. But if Mappa's gonna adapt it that way, and who knows, maybe it was Isayama's intention to just alter things around. And it wouldn't be the first time it's happened to because, again, the flashback with the story and when she's talking about her sister, that happens earlier on in the arc too in the manga versus where it actually happened in the anime. So it's one of those things. But ultimately, I'll say this before I close up and wrap up the stream here. From an anime perspective, I'll say the episode again is an amazing plus episode. Now, in the long run, with what I know from the manga, how do I feel now about this moment? I don't know. That's the thing. Like, it's still a great moment, and I might just leave it at great. But at the same time, I want to be honest here in saying this. So, while personally, to me, it's still great, even as I'm looking at it post the manga's ending, I think it's just honestly good plus because of where I know things are gonna go, and it's one of those cases where I wish I hadn't read the manga, and because everything would have still been left up to my interpretation. But I mean, you guys know how I feel. Y'all know. I'm sure a lot of y'all can relate. But manga reader side of me wants to say, okay, it's good plus borderline great, and I'll leave it at that. So ultimately, that's all I've got to say when it comes to my thoughts on this week's episode of Attack on Titan. And I will still, again, do more thoughts on the episode because, again, because that episode listing, it's got me more curious now than anything, just to see how Mappa adapts it. Because at this point, you've only got like a little less than 7 episodes left to adapt. And it's like, how are you going to tackle all that? Like, how are you going to tackle the last 18 chapters in 12 episodes? You would legit have to speed rush a lot of stuff. And I mean, a lot. But aside from that, guys, I think that's pretty much it when it comes to my thoughts on this week's episode of Attack on Titan. Anime perspective, again, it's an amazing plus episode. From the perspective of the manga side of things, good plus to great. And I'm going to leave it at that. So let me know what you guys thought about the episode. Manga readers, how did y'all feel about the episode? And aside from that, you guys, that's pretty much it. I'm Lucky7. Don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more Attack on Titan content. And I'll catch you guys next time. Peace.